Hello, this is Pastor Henzy of the Filling Station, and welcome to the Filling Station podcast. It is designed to fuel your life, particularly if you're a dreamer, believer, or achiever. God has big plans for you, but we have to be strategic, systematic, and spiritual in achieving those plans. Well, we've been talking about getting a game plan and how to go along with God's plan. Last week we talked about goals. So if you didn't see that podcast, go back and review the podcast on goals. But today's podcast is really about getting a game plan. Yes, right. You need a game plan, which is a written plan on how you're going to achieve what you want to achieve. Now, couple points I want you to be real clear. One is you have to bring your whole self to the planning table. When I say that, part of you is spiritual and part of you is physical. And a lot of people, when they're creating a plan, they only take into account the physical aspect of them. But you must also include the spiritual aspect of you. And you must make a plan to support whatever you're doing, whether it's a business, a career, family, whatever, health, whatever your goal is, you have to bring the spiritual component to the table and make it a systematic plan, as well as the physical component being a systematic plan. Things just don't happen. They must be planned. And so here's what I want to give you. I've coined this phrase, you got to have an RRD department. RRD, y'all know every major corporation has a R, research and development department. Well, as believers, we have to have a research, revelation, and development department. That's right. You have to do research. You have to submit it for revelation, and then it has to be developed out. I don't want you to leave that aspect out. One of the things I want you to do, even before you really get fully into the game plan, even if you're creating a game plan to create a game plan, two things I want you to pray from the spiritual aspect. Number one is that the Holy Spirit will teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance, which means pray and invite the Holy Spirit into your planning process. So many of us just approach the planning process as a strictly physical activity, but you want to invite the Holy Spirit to be a part of the planning process. The Holy Spirit will not force his way into your process, but he stands by at the ready to move at your invitation. So make sure you invite the Holy Spirit into your process. Number two is ask God to open your spiritual eyes as you are researching. There's a great story in the Bible with Elijah, and Elijah has a manservant. He comes out and he sees that they are completely surrounded, and he's taken aback, and he goes to his master and says, "Master, we're surrounded. What are we going to do?" The master seems like he's not troubled at all, but he prays and asks God, "God, open his eyes." Now, obviously, his physical eyes were open. He saw the people, but his spiritual eyes were not open. At that moment, God opens his eyes and he can see the hills are full of allies. And he recognizes that those that are for us are more than those that are against us. But the real matter of fact is, he is telling him there's another level of sight that's spiritual. And if you don't ask God to open your spiritual eyes, you may miss something incredible. I'll share with you this story. I owned a business in downtown Indianapolis. And one time I came out of that business and there was this place called Pan Am Plaza that they had developed during the Pan American Games. They used it during the Pan American Games, but then it just sat vacant for a long time. And when I came out, I looked over there, God opened my eyes, and I saw a festival on the plaza. And so I pitched the idea to my mentor at the time, which was Al Hobbs, and we called the people that owned the plaza and said, hey, can we rent this thing for a festival? And they said, well, I don't know, I guess so. We never thought about renting it out. They said, let us get together and try to figure out a price and put together a contract. Well, they did. That year we sold about 18 booths, I remember. Our hope was that we would do maybe 3,500 people, and we end up doing 35,000 people. All because God opened my eyes. That business generated millions. And I wish I could take some credit, like I had some genius or some insight. I did not. The only thing that happened is God opened my spiritual eyes. So when you're doing research, make sure you pray and ask God to open your spiritual eyes. Now, the last thing I want to share with you about the game plan is a good way to start is to just start making lists. Make list of the things that you need to do, whatever it is you need to do. Make list of the processes that you are aware of. Make list of the advantages that you may have. Even make list of the areas that may be a little more challenging. And then construct it into a systematic plan. I want to make sure that you understand this. I want to give you what I call the 6-15 rule. The Bible prescribes a 6-day work week. And I'm asking you to, whatever you're working on, put it in your plan that you will touch it 6 days a week for at least 15 minutes. Now, I'd really ask you to touch it 6 days a week, 15 minutes, twice a day. You know, something like 6:15 in the morning, 6:15 in the evening. Doesn't have to be those times. But if you gave it 15 minutes a day, 6 days a week, you will be amazed at how much progress you will make. Because a lot of people do this herky-jerky. They do 3 hours a day and then don't touch it again until Friday, and then do 2 hours here. And even though the time adds up to more, I'm more concerned about your consistency. You want whatever you're working on to become a lifestyle. And so touch it every day for 15 minutes or 15 minutes twice a day. If it's reading, if it's research, if it's looking at stuff on the internet concerning your business, whatever it is, touch it every day for at least 15 minutes. I close with this story. There was a gentleman that lived out in the country, and one day he came out on his porch and there was a snail on the porch, and he hated snails. And so he picked the snail up and fired the snail across the street into a big field and went back into his house. Well, 2 years later, he heard a knock at the door. And when he opened the door, he looked down and it was the snail. And the snail said to him, "What was that all about?" My point is, it took the snail 2 years to get back, but he was steady about making progress toward his goal. It's not necessarily how fast you get there, but make some progress every day, 6 days a week, and you will eventually get to what you desire. Well, thank you for joining me again for the Filling Station podcast. Want to let you know that this is a subservice of an actual church service called the Filling Station. It is on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in Indianapolis, Indiana. We're located at the Jordan Y. That's 8400 Westfield Boulevard Boulevard at 9 a.m. Or you can check us out on Instagram or Facebook under the filling station. But if you've got a big dream in your heart, we're designed to give you the fuel to live out that dream. Well, thank you for joining me. Once again, my name is Pastor Henzy Green, and it's been my privilege to talk to you.